The night flight from Cairo to Perth was supposed to be a routine trip. But for Bella, a cheerful flight attendant this night would turn into a nightmare she could never escape. What happened on that plane was not just an ordinary incident. No, it was something else. Something that brought back shadows from the past. Cindy, her colleague, remembers everything, every little detail, still carved into her mind, like a wound that never heals. And now, she has decided to share this story. Not for sympathy, not to exaggerate, but because some things should never be left buried. People think her job is glamorous, traveling the world, meeting new people, wearing an elegant uniform. But behind the warm smiles, behind the impeccable service, lies another side, a much darker side. So, here's the story. Cindy had just returned from a 2-week leave. She was scheduled for the night flight from Cairo to Perth. Night flights always drained her energy, but she had no other choice. She was sharing a crew room at the hotel with 2 friends, Bella and Helen. The 3 of them were close. They had flown together many times, and they had always been together since high school. That night, Helen had gone out. Bella was getting ready for the flight. Cindy lay on the bed, lost in thought. Then she felt it. Something was off. Bella, who was usually so cheerful, looked different that night. Her face was pale, her eyes sunken, and her smile, it didn't feel natural. Cindy tried to ignore the feeling. Maybe Bella was just tired. But as Bella walked past her, Cindy caught a strange scent, damp earth, mixed with something rotten. She told herself it was just her imagination. She even joked, "Belle, what did you bring? Our room smells weird." Bella gave a faint smile. It's nothing, Cin. Your nose is just too sensitive," she said with a small laugh. But that laugh, it was empty. Not like the Bella she knew. When they arrived at the airport, everything seemed normal. The other crew members showed no signs that anything was wrong. Cindy started to think maybe she was just overthinking. The flight went smoothly until about 3 hours after takeoff. By then, they had entered the airspace near Perth, when suddenly, the weather took a drastic turn. The once clear sky turned pitch black. Thick, dark clouds swallowed the view, and turbulence began to shake the plane. As a flight attendant, Cindy was used to turbulence. But tonight was different. The shaking was too strong, like something was slamming against the aircraft. The cabin lights flickered, and suddenly, the atmosphere felt unsettling. Suddenly, a passenger, an elderly man in seat 21A, shot up from his seat yelling, "There's something out there! I saw it! Something's on the wing!" Cindy, who was in the aisle at the time, rushed over to him, trying to calm him down. "Sir, please take your seat and fasten your seatbelt." "It's just turbulence," she said, keeping her voice as steady as possible. But the man was trembling. "No, I swear, I saw something. It's not human." Cindy glanced out the window near the man's seat, but there was nothing, just darkness. She told herself he was just panicking, imagining things. But as she walked back toward the rear of the cabin, she stopped. Bella was standing by the galley, completely still. Her face was deathly pale. Her eyes, empty, locked onto the emergency exit. "Belle, what's wrong?" Cindy asked, gently touching her shoulder. Bella didn't answer. She just stood there, motionless, like a statue. Her breathing was heavy. Cindy felt it now. Something was really wrong. The turbulence grew worse. Thunder roared, shaking the entire plane. Then, darkness. The cabin lights went out. Passengers screamed in panic. Amid the chaos, Cindy heard something else. A laugh, software low, but chilling. She turned toward the sound, and there was Bella, laughing quietly, staring straight at her. "Belle, what are you doing?" Cindy's voice trembled. Bella slowly raised her right hand and pointed at the emergency exit. "She's out there," she whispered. Her voice was soft but ice cold. "It's time." A chill ran down Cindy's spine. Who? Who are you talking about?" Bella didn't answer. Her eyes glowed strangely in the dark. Slowly she walked toward the emergency exit. Her steps were light, yet they felt heavy, as if something unseen was pulling her forward. Cindy panicked. She sprinted after her, grabbing her arm. "Bella, do you even realize where we are? We're 35,000 feet in the air." Bella turned to face her and smiled. Her grin stretched unnaturally wide, revealing rows of yellowed teeth. She didn't look like Bella anymore. "It's time." Her voice was barely a whisper. "She's here. For me." Bella reached for the emergency door, her grip tightening around the handle. She yanked at it, hard, but it wouldn't budge. "Open it!" she screamed, her voice raspy, desperate. Panic spread through the crew. Cindy and the others tried to pull her away, but her body felt impossibly heavy, like something was anchoring her down. "Bella, stop!" Cindy shouted. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered violently. A deep rumbling echoed from outside the plane. The air inside the cabin turned ice cold. Bella didn't care. She kept pulling at the door, her face flushed from the effort. "Let me go!" she shrieked. At that moment, a massive, shadowy figure appeared at the plane's window. Its dark form clung to the glass, peering in. Burning red ice pierced through the darkness. The entire cabin fell silent. Passengers and crew froze, transfixed by the horrifying sight. Bella stopped struggling. She turned and locked eyes with the crimson gaze outside. Her lips trembled. "I'm sorry, Leela. I don't want to go." She whispered it over and over. Then, her body went limp. She collapsed onto the floor. The turbulence grew worse, violent, relentless. Then, total darkness. The cabin lights died completely, and chaos took over. Screams, crying, panic. The nightmare had only just begun. Then, the shaking stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. The cabin lights flickered back on. But Bella, she was gone. Only a long, jagged scratch remained on the wall near the emergency exit, as if something had tried to claw its way out. On the floor, a thick, dark red liquid pooled into an eerie, twisted pattern. Passengers began screaming, hysterical, terrified. Helen stepped closer to the scratches, her breath shallow. "What is this blood?" she whispered, voice trembling. Then, a chill crawled up her spine, bone deep. She turned. No one was there, just empty space. And then, a whisper, soft where cold, calling her name. Helen. When the plane finally landed safely in Perth, Cindy let out a breath of relief. But with the memories of what happened on that flight, they wouldn't leave her mind. Bella's face. That eerie smile. The way she changed. Still burned into her thoughts. Cindy and Helen stood near the Hojum baggage claim. Pale. Silent. Their hands trembling. Then, a uniformed airport staff approached Cindy, holding a small box within his hands. Cindy's heartbeat quickened. "This was found in the cabin," the man said, his voice calm but firm. "Maybe it belongs to one of the crew." Cindy took the box with trembling hands. Slowly, she lifted the lid. Inside, Bella's journal and a photograph. Blurry, faded, but right in the center, a red ink circle. Silence hung between them. Cindy and Helen exchanged glances, eyes wide, breaths unsteady. Something about these objects felt wrong. Deeply, terribly wrong. Like they were holding a secret. A dark truth waiting to be uncovered. Cindy flipped through the pages carefully. Bella's handwriting was neat and elegant. At first, the entries were ordinary. But then, the words became erratic. Scribbles, scratches, distorted drawings, random dates that made no sense. And then, a confession, a memory of something horrible. Bella had once bullied a classmate, relentlessly, until the girl was left broken, physically, mentally. On the page, Bella had drawn a child's figure, face covered in wounds, and beneath it, she had written, "She always comes in my dreams. She's waiting for me." Cindy's hands felt cold. Every word she read felt like a dagger, revealing a side of Bella she never knew. Guilt, fear, as if Bella had written this in pure terror. As if even in death she wasn't alone. Helen held the blurry photo closer, her fingers trembling slightly. It was a picture from their high school days. Bella stood among their group, smiling. So did Cindy, Helen, the others. And there, right in the middle, Lila. A red circle had been drawn around her face, her bruised, wounded face, as if the photo itself carried a story no one dared to tell. Helen's breath hitched. This is from high school," she murmured. Cindy nodded, her expression tense. Silence filled the space between them. A suffocating, heavy silence, as the weight of the past pressed down on them. Had they all played a part in this? Was this why Bella had been marked? However, amidst the turmoil, Cindy remained still, staring at the photo with an unreadable expression. She had always been by Bella's side, not directly involved, but never standing against her, never defending Lila. Now, the shadows of the past loomed over them both, demanding answers for the sins they had ignored for too long. A chilling air wrapped around them, like unseen fingers crawling through the atmosphere. Helen felt something shift in the shadows behind the luggage crates. She turned, nothing was there, yet Cindy felt it too. Their eyes met, and in a hushed voice, Helen whispered, "Today. Maybe this is the day she meant, the day she comes for Bella." But there was something inside the box they had yet to notice. On the final page of Bella's diary, written in ink so faded it was nearly invisible. "To those who read this, you will know what it feels like." Cindy felt her heart stop. Her fingers trembled as she held the diary. With shaking hands, she flipped open Bella's journal, the one found inside her luggage. Each page she read pressed heavier against her chest. The words flowed like a desperate confession, written in pure despair. "I know I'm guilty. I know I'll never be forgiven." That sentence appeared on almost every page, followed by grim recollections of Bella's past misdeeds. Cindy read about how Bella and her friends once tormented a girl named Lila in high school. What started as harmless teasing quickly turned into something far worse. Lila, a quiet girl, always hiding behind her long hair. Bella, the leader of the group, orchestrated cruel pranks, scribbling over Lila's notebooks, locking the bathroom door while she was inside, even hiding her wheelchair after the accident that left her disabled. Cindy had never laid a hand on Lila herself, but she had always been there, laughing, watching as Lila cried. In her journal, Bella wrote about the day they locked Lila inside the sports equipment room. When Lila was finally found, she lay motionless, beside a letter she had written herself. A curse. For everyone who had hurt her, especially Bella. "You will know what it feels like. I will return." The words echoed in Cindy's mind. Like a spell, Cindy shut the diary and decided to check the other items in Bella's suitcase. As she unzipped a small wallet inside, her breath hitched. It was an old high school photo of Bella. She stood alone in the center, smiling brightly as she always did. But in the background, faint, almost like a shadow, was Lila, a figure that shouldn't be there. What made the photo even more unsettling was the faded red ink scrawled across the bottom. "I will return." Cindy's heart pounded. A creeping sense of dread crawled over her skin. The photo felt like a warning, a whisper from the past, finally resurfacing. Cindy couldn't sleep that night. The ghosts of the past, ones she thought had long been buried, were now clawing their way back into her mind. She shivered. Not from the cold, but from the fear that refused to leave her. Even though she had never truly taken part in what happened to Lila, the guilt gnawed at her piece by piece. Bella's final words in her diary echoed relentlessly. "I hear her voice at night. I see her reflection in the mirror. I know my time is up. And when my time is over, this curse will not end." Cindy tried to convince herself that it was all just a coincidence, the photo, the message, Bella's death. But her thoughts wouldn't quiet down. What if the curse was real? What if Lila's shadow had truly returned? That night, in the silence of her hotel room, Cindy felt her neck stiffen. Something was forcing her to turn. With a deep breath, she lifted her gaze toward the mirror hanging in the corner of the room. Her heart stopped. There, just beyond her reflection, stood a girl with long dark hair, motionless, empty eyes staring straight at her. Cindy shut her eyes tightly, hoping it was nothing but her imagination. But when she dared to look again, the figure was gone. She gasped for air, but the relief was short-lived. With each passing day, Cindy felt trapped in an endless spiral where shadows lurked in every corner, flickered through mirrors, and seeped into her darkest thoughts. The guilt weighed heavier. The silence within her grew louder. She tried to fight it, tried to break free, but every time she turned around, she felt it. A presence, watching, waiting. A few days later, Cindy decided to visit Helen, one of their old friends who was also part of that dark past. She hoped to talk, to find some comfort, or at least some answers to the thoughts that had been haunting her. But as she arrived at Helen's house, her eyes immediately locked onto the yellow police tape wrapped around the property. The atmosphere was eerily silent. A concerned neighbor informed her that Helen had been found lifeless in her room, her face frozen in an expression of pure terror. Cindy staggered back, her body weak, unable to hold back her tears. She knew what had happened to Helen. She knew what was coming next. And now it had all become reality. Lila's curse, the one she had once only felt as a creeping fear and uncertainty, had reached its peak. Bella was the first victim, and now it was Helen. As time passed, Cindy's life became consumed by fear and loneliness, gnawing away at her soul. Should she seek forgiveness from those who had been hurt? Was there any way to stop this? Or would she too become part of this dark tale? She didn't know the answers. All she knew was that every night was filled with an anxiety she couldn't shake. She tried to escape the shadows of the past, but finding peace felt impossible. Resigning from her job as a flight attendant, leaving behind a world once full of color, seemed like the only way to distance herself from an unavoidable reality. Every corner of her life now felt dark, filled with whispers that reminded her of Bella, of Lila, and of her own role in their tragic story. Even speaking about the past felt suffocating, too terrifying to recall, let alone confess. The curse of the past never truly fades. Lila may be gone, but the weight of her hatred lingers, haunting those who deserve it.